I used to think the worst thing a man could do was cheat. I was wrong. The worst is when he makes you feel like your whole life was collateral damage in his secret. My name's Lena, and last month I found out my husband sold our house, the home we built together, to pay for someone else's apartment. I still can't say that sentence without feeling like I'm talking about a stranger's life. We'd lived there for 12 years. 2 kids, 1 dog, a garden he promised he'd landscape every summer but never did. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Every wall held a memory. Every corner, a version of us that I thought was real. After he died, the paperwork started rolling in. The kind of envelopes you open half-heartedly between bites of cereal. Most of them were insurance junk, things labeled important documents that never actually were. Until one day, one of them was... The letter was from the bank. Final sale confirmation. I thought it was a refinance notice. Maybe a clerical error. I even joked to myself that it was another scam. You know, the ones that start with "Congratulations on your recent home sale." But then I saw it. His signature, the date, the property address, our house. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with that paper trembling in my hands, surrounded by empty mugs and half-packed boxes, feeling something crack inside me. At first, I thought he'd lost it, made a bad investment, a panic decision, but the truth? He didn't lose the house. He gave it away. For her. We met when I was 23 and he was 25. Both broke, both pretending we had plans. He had that kind of easy charm that makes you believe everything will turn out fine just because he says so. We moved in together after a year, lived off cheap takeout and secondhand furniture, and somehow built something solid from it. When we finally bought the house, it felt like a miracle. A small 2-story with uneven floors and a leaky faucet, but to us it was perfect. We spent weekends painting the walls ourselves, arguing over colors, laughing when we accidentally left handprints in the drying paint. Every dent and scuff was proof of our effort. That house wasn't just shelter, it was the story of our marriage written in drywall and chipped tile. We had 2 kids, a mortgage we could barely afford, and dreams that always seemed one paycheck away. He worked in finance, the steady one, the planner. I handled the day-to-day, school lunches, permission slips, remembering birthdays. He handled the numbers. That was our rhythm, our balance. And he was good with money. At least, that's what I believed. He liked things organized, private. He'd sit at his computer late at night, spreadsheets glowing on his screen, saying he was just making sure everything added up. I never questioned it. He'd look over his glasses and joke, "You're not a numbers person, babe. Trust me, I've got this." And I did. For nearly 15 years, I trusted him with the math of our lives. Every decision, every bill, every cent. Sometimes I'd wake up and see the light still on in his office, his silhouette hunched over the desk. I'd think, he's working so hard for us. Now I know better. He used to tell me, "This house is our forever place." I didn't realize he meant it wouldn't include me. It started the way these things always do, with something small that didn't make sense. I was sorting through the mail, the usual pile of bills and junk, when I saw it. An official-looking envelope from the bank. Notice of transfer. My first thought was that it had to be a refinance or an error. He handled all that stuff, and we just renewed our mortgage last year. But then I opened it. It wasn't a refinance. It was confirmation of a completed sale. Our address printed in bold at the top, the kind of legal wording that doesn't leave room for interpretation. Beneath it, his name listed as the seller, and the buyer's name. Someone I'd never heard of. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might be sick. When he came home that night, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the letter in my hand. My voice came out quiet, almost steady. "What is this?" He froze. Just for a second. The kind of pause you only notice when you're looking for it. Then he smiled that calm, practiced smile and said, "Oh, that? It's complicated. Don't worry, it's just paperwork. A temporary sale for a business thing." A business thing. I laughed, but it sounded wrong. Too sharp, too brittle. "You sold our house? And it's a business thing?" He rubbed his temples. "You wouldn't understand, Lena. It's for us. For the family." That line, "for us," made something in me snap. I grabbed his laptop from the counter, opened the folders I'd always ignored, and there it was. A full sales agreement. His signature, the notary stamp. the wire transfer confirmation. "Why would you sell our home without telling me?" I asked. He just stared at me, and for the first time, I saw a kind of pity in his eyes, like I was too naive to understand the world he lived in. He promised it was all handled, that I should trust him. But I'd trusted him with everything, and apparently, that was exactly the problem. After that night, everything inside me felt off balance, like the world had tilted just a few degrees, but no one else could feel it. He said he needed air, that we both did. He grabbed his keys, kissed my forehead out of habit, and walked out like we were having a normal argument. I watched the taillights disappear down the street and waited for the sound of the door again. It never came. The house felt wrong without him in it, too quiet, too honest. At first I sat there for hours, clutching that letter, telling myself this was fixable, that there was a reasonable explanation. He'd always said I overreacted. Maybe I was doing it again. But when midnight hit and he still hadn't come back, I turned on every light in the house and started digging. It was supposed to make me feel better, to prove that I was imagining things. But with every drawer I opened, every file I clicked, something in me started to unravel. I found receipts first. Furniture purchases from a store in another city, modern, expensive, nothing like our style. Then a lease agreement tucked inside a folder on his laptop. It wasn't in our city, it wasn't even in our county. My chest tightened as I scrolled through his transaction history. There were bank transfers labeled consulting and maintenance, repeating, consistent, always to the same name, a woman. The first wave of denial hit hard. I told myself it had to be business-related. He was the finance guy, always juggling side investments and projects I didn't understand. Maybe it was a tax shelter, or an investment property he hadn't wanted to mention until it was ready. That sounded reasonable. That's what a loving, responsible husband would do, right? But the longer I stared, the less sense it made. Why would he pay someone consulting fees every month when we were barely keeping up with bills? I told myself I'd stop looking. I promised I'd wait until morning. But curiosity doesn't feel like curiosity when it's mixed with fear. It feels like survival. I went through his emails next. Most of them were boring work threads, until I saw the name again, the same name from the transfers. The subject line read, "New place looks great. When can I see you?" I clicked it. There weren't many messages, just enough to paint a picture. Apartment listings, delivery confirmations, notes about her place and their nights. And one photo, blurry, candid, but unmistakable. A woman standing on a balcony with the skyline behind her. Our skyline. I zoomed in until the image pixelated, as if that could make her less real. My mind started racing, looping through every possibility that wasn't what it looked like. Maybe she was a realtor. Maybe this was for work. Maybe. But each excuse sounded weaker than the last. I tried calling him. Once, twice, 10 times, straight to voicemail. His "I'll clear my head" had turned into complete silence. And then the guilt crept in. Slow, poisonous. What if I pushed too hard? What if I made him feel cornered? What if this is my fault? I stared at the clock until dawn, numb and shaking, waiting for the sound of his key in the lock. But the next morning, he still wasn't home. And when I checked his phone's GPS history, the one synced to our family plan, it showed a location I didn't recognize. An address I'd never seen before. By sunrise, I was already in the car. I didn't plan it. I just moved. My body knew what it needed to do before my mind caught up. The GPS pin blinked on my phone screen. An upscale apartment complex across town. The kind of place with glass balconies, valet parking, and a lobby that smells like expensive perfume and quiet secrets. I parked down the street and waited. At 8:47, he walked out. Same coat, same phone, same face I'd kissed goodnight for 15 years. Only now, it looked like someone I used to know. And behind him, stepping into the sunlight, was her. She was younger, early 30s maybe. Pretty in a deliberate way. Neat hair, perfect posture, confident stride. Everything I used to be before exhaustion and kids and bills. I watched him open the car door for her like a scene he'd rehearsed. They kissed. My heart didn't break so much as it cracked quietly, like something old giving way. I waited until they drove off. Then I went up. The doorman barely looked at me. I rode the elevator to the 3rd floor. My pulse loud in my ears. When she opened the door, her face went from surprise to recognition in seconds. She didn't slam it shut. She just stared. "You weren't supposed to find out like this," she said softly. I laughed, a sound sharp enough to hurt. "Find out what? That I'm paying your rent?" She blinked, guilt flickering across her face. "He told me your marriage was over, that he was just handling things. He said the house was part of moving on. A fresh start." I felt the world tilt. "A fresh start?" I repeated. "With my mortgage money?" She looked down. "He said you wouldn't notice, that you didn't care about the finances, that it was all his responsibility." There wasn't venom in her voice, no arrogance or triumph, just sadness, maybe even shame. For a second, I saw that she'd been lied to too, just differently. I stood there numb, watching her twist a ring on her finger. Not an engagement ring, but close enough. He hadn't just cheated on me, he'd used our home, the one I built, cleaned, and loved, as a down payment on his new life. A few days later, I sat in our lawyer's office. The same man who handled our mortgage, our wills, the life insurance. He'd known us for years. When I told him what I'd found, he frowned, the kind of expression professionals make when they already know it's bad news. He started pulling records, one after another, each one worse than the last. He didn't just sell the house, he'd taken out an equity loan 6 months before the sale, behind my back, maxed out our joint credit cards, liquidated the kids' college funds for investment purposes. By the time the sale was finalized, the money was already gone, transferred in pieces over months, small enough to look harmless, steady enough to drain us dry. The apartment, the one I'd seen her walk out of, was paid for with the last of our savings. Every dollar we'd ever scraped together now sat in someone else's marble kitchen. I could see it all now, the late nights at the office, the business meetings, the quiet tension when I'd ask about our finances. He wasn't working late. He was building his escape route, one signature at a time. The lawyer sighed and said it gently, like that made it hurt less. "The account's empty, Lena." Empty. That word echoed louder than any betrayal. He didn't just betray me. He left me bankrupt, emotionally, legally, financially. He built a future on my blind trust, and then he cashed it in. After that, I stopped answering calls. The lawyer, my mother, even friends who meant well. They all wanted updates, explanations, something to fix. But there was nothing left to fix. I changed the locks, canceled the cards, shut down every joint account that still carried his name. The house felt like a crime scene, familiar but contaminated. The kids kept asking when Dad was coming home. I told them he was away for a while, because how do you tell children their father traded their future for an apartment key that wasn't ours? People said, "He'll come to his senses." They didn't understand. There's no coming back from this kind of betrayal. Grief and betrayal feel the same. They both leave you talking to walls that used to listen. He sold the house for her apartment, but he left me the mortgage of his lies. In the end, I didn't chase him. Not the money, not the house, not the apology that would never come. I was done building my life around what he'd taken. I found a small townhouse a few miles away. Smaller, quieter, but mine. Ours. I painted the walls myself this time, let the kids pick their own colors, let the noise fill the spaces where grief used to live. On the living room wall, I hung one photo. Not of him, of me and the kids, laughing in the backyard before everything collapsed. The grass was uneven, the house behind us imperfect, but the happiness was real. He sold the house. I sold my silence. One of us got what they wanted. Some homes crumble long before the walls do.